We jump right into the second talk since we're a little bit late. This time we have Lorenze Jay here, and he will talk about. Okay, calm down. He will talk about how he uses Node.js to automate his Macbook. So give it a heads up.
Cool. Thanks, Christian. So hey everyone, my name is Lorenz, and today I'll be talking about how I use Node.js to automate my Macbook, pretty much. So today I'll be talking about who I am, applescript, JXA, and where Node.js fits in all of that, how I use it, and a little demo, and then how you guys use it. So a little bit about me. I'm a software engineer. I'm currently at Unify. I was previously at Stateful, and I wrote a blog about Macbook automation that got featured on hashnode, kind of leading to some inspiration for this talk. And yeah, I just love optimizing my workspace and anything JavaScript. So let's get to, when we think of Node.js, what do we think of? Like, it's building APIs, communicating with servers, keeping things JavaScript, and building native or web applications. But for my niche use case, I kind of wanted to use Node.js as a scripting language to communicate with my MacBook, specifically my MacBook, and kind of using applescript or JXA to talk to the MacBook to extend its functionality, like opening apps and certain things.
Intel MacBook or
M1 or ARM.
But does it work on both?
It should. I haven't tested it, but it should. So this is applescript. Pretty much, applescript is Apple's version of being able to automate. JXA was created to be able to run applescript as JavaScript. So any JavaScript developer can pretty much run JXA to do the same thing. So like open applications, do certain things like communicate with a certain app and play. Like for example, you could communicate with Spotify, play, pause songs, and do things of that. Where Node.js fits in, it allows us to run scripts. So we could use JXA to do what I just said, run applications and control certain processes. So the problem that I was trying to solve is, as a consultant before, I was dealing with opening up different workspaces. So company A required different apps to run. It required a Postgres database and certain commands to get up and running. And at the end, sometimes I kind of wanted to select from different workspaces. So I created a script that allowed me to select based off like what workspace I want to work in and kind of populate all the applications and dependencies that it needed to get up and running. So a little demo time. There should be a video there, but if it doesn't work, I will render a video. So I'm hoping it works. If not, then tough. So the script is to select the workspace. We're going to choose Unify, and it's going to populate all the commands it needs. So it'll open up terminal, run code, run Docker, open up VS Code, run localhost 8000 on browser. This is dbeaver to visualize databases, and yeah, my setup is started in like one click of a button. So let's go back into my slides. So good thing it worked, because the video wasn't going to load. Present. And yeah, I'm going to go to the code. Just to show you guys a little bit about applescript and where Node.js fits in. So pretty much this is the syntax for being able to run it. So it's like any other JavaScript, just open application based off what's being passed in. So it could be any app that lives. So it could be like Chrome, Spotify, Obsidian, things of that nature. I'm sorry? Oh yeah. Oh. Better? If you want to do more complicated things like opening things in the terminal, you could have like certain things like file paths, commands, does it use Docker or not, and be able to kind of iterate through a loop of specific commands. So for example, I have like I want to open certain workspaces. These are the workspace commands to get them up and running. So if you have them on your terminal, you can do npm run start, npm run dev to get that all booted up. And we can see over here that all those processes kind of worked. It is kind of small, but it's like up and running. Let's see, and then you could do the same thing with browsers. So for example, if you want to populate your browser tab, this could be any browser. So I'm using Arc right now, but if I wanted to preload, like for example, you close your day and you wanted to preload certain like browser like tabs, like GitHub, Linear, whatever project management like application you're using, you could pass that in and it'll load those specific browsers when you open. So you can do this with Chrome, Firefox, depending on whatever app you want. It'll just preload the tab specific to whatever window open. But yeah, and then this is a little example of how I use it. So I do have a npm package that I've released. So you could install npm Node.js workspace automation and kind of have all these specific things. So if like, oh, the app that's being passed. So for example, here, these are all the applications being opened for like Unify, for example. So if you want to, it'll iterate through the loop of through that array of applications, and based off certain things, like, oh, if you want to open Docker, if you want to open the terminal, here are the contexts you need, like the file paths, certain commands, things of that nature. And then other applications that don't need real processes, like Spotify, things like that, you can just open it. But yeah, that's a little bit about the code. So pretty much, if you know JavaScript, you can automate with JXA or applescript. That's code, and these are how you could trigger it. So within Apple, you could create launch agents, kind of config your plist to automate or to determine the cadence of when you want the script to run. So you could have it a weekly basis on a certain time, or you could use shortcuts that I did to have something like in the menu bar that gets toggled up there, where you could like, oh, open a certain app, open my workspace, things like that. So furthermore, you could use it by, if you're using any Node.js runtime, like an Electron app or certain things, you could also use Node/JXA to run scripts. Node.js can be used as a scripting language, and a good example of Node and AppleScript being used is VS Code Spotify. So for example, it communicates, I'm not using, I don't have Spotify currently like open, but I could play a song from this extension. I don't know, you can't hear it, but it's playing. But yeah, using Node and AppleScript. So the future is to be able to close out my day. I could open it, but I can't really close it. So without control, quit. So the next steps is to kind of iterate over this and kind of be able to fully automate my day, where it closes at a particular time or whenever I want to, based off the context that I pass. So workspace 1 or workspace 2, close that at the end of the day, and kind of create a way to customize what file paths, what applications I want without having to specifically hard code it to a file. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and my talk. If you guys have any questions? Okay.
Yeah, that's all awesome. Can you please repeat the part where the logic in script where application is supposed to be run and where application is already launched? How do you handle it?
Yeah, so we have this if statement here saying if it's running, activate. Activate means bring it to the forefront of the app. So as you saw those, when I clicked the workspace I chose, apps started popping open. So if it's running already, open it, but if it's not, launch it. Hey, like wait a little bit, but then activate, put it to the forefront. Sometimes it doesn't work if you don't have a delay, because it's just too fast and the apps aren't really like loading and doesn't really recognize it, so this should work.
How did you figure it out? I mean, did you know already AppleScript started out?
So I contributed a while ago to VS Code Spotify, kind of introduced me to AppleScript, and it was kind of amazed how you could be able to communicate with system level processes without having to really know a lower level language. So you could do all of this with JavaScript.
So you said VS Code Spotify.
Yeah, it's an extension that you could install and pretty much like have a sidebar here that you could pause, play, change the song without leaving VS Code.
So you just looked into the code when you installed VS Code Spotify and figured it out.
Yeah.
Are you planning to open source like a package that runs that you're using there, or is it already like?
So there is a npm package that I have based off like the scripts I made up and running. Let me see. I can't like copy this. So at least this part is open source, so you could like open app, open browsers and things like that.
Really kind of dumb and basic question. What are workspaces? I'm still on caching now, so.
That's just my terminology of like what I think is a workspace. A workspace is a certain like app that I'm working on, or like a particular repo that I'm on that requires certain applications to like be fully running, like Insomnia as like Postman, dbeaver to visualize my data. That's just what I call a workspace.
Is there a framework you're using, or did you write a custom application for your menu bar application?
For my menu bar, the top? No, that's like default Mac.
No, I mean the menu bar application that lets you switch your workspace.
Oh yeah, so with applescript as well, you could have there's a method where you run this choose from list. You don't have to be on a particular app, so you could say on whatever app I'm on, based off a string of arrays, list down all like the apps on the workspaces that I want to choose from. But this is like pretty much like a prompter that applescript lets you do.
So one thing you didn't mention was Safari. It seems like if you're controlling things with AppleScript, you would think that you would have more control over Apple provided apps and less control over the ones that Apple doesn't provide. And so you said that you also can control Electron apps quite well. Are there some apps that are resistant to being controlled?
Yeah, so for example, a lot of apps give out a dictionary based off like what functions you could do specific to that application. So for example, Spotify has an app dictionary that you could use, for example, getting like the current track, what your player's state is. Not all apps have this. So for example, VS Code doesn't specifically have an app dictionary that you could just say, okay, I want to open this. But there are workarounds to it. That's one of the biggest reasons why I can't particularly close specific things, because they don't give me like a window ID that I could like see and iterate and close. But for the most part, there's a lot of apps. So if you go to script editor, and then you could see application dictionaries based off, there's a list that you could see of all the apps that you have that have a dictionary, and then you can see like the methods that you could call to do certain things.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorenze.
Exactly.